Hello, hello and welcome to yet another fantastic session of Beacon webinars. How you doing? My name is Kirillo and I am the Business Analyst Office Director at SoftServe. And we are about to start, I hope, very interesting session, and I will introduce the speakers and the topic in a second. But first, let's check if our chat is working. So all participants, if you can write something in the chat, and I suggest maybe write where you're joining from, like where you're located at the moment. And if that is your first time, or maybe you're like a returning customer for the Beacon webinar. Okay, I see some fast hands here already wrote hello something. Okay, we see people from Spain, from Lviv, from Kharkiv, Lviv, Dnipro, oh, my favorite city. More from Lviv, from Ukraine, from Kiev, from Bulgaria, Sofia. Not Spain, okay. That's a shame. What else do we have? Returning customer from Dnipro, perfect. Canada, wow. Glad to see you again. Yes, glad to see you too. All right, that's good. So it seems our chat is working, so you can use the chat for comments, questions to the speakers, sharing your thoughts. Also, we have a Q&A section. You can also put the questions there. Oh, we have people from Riga. Wow, welcome. And yeah, so you can also use the Q&A section, or you can just put your questions in the chat. Let me share the presentation and I will introduce the topic today and also talk a little bit about our session and introduce the speakers. So the topic today is called Solution Scope and Requirements Architecture, how structured requirements can build a common understanding of the solution. I'm very excited. I really want to hear these presentations, and I know that speakers that will deliver that have like tons of experience in that area, and you know, I had the chance to work closely and communicate closely to both of them because they are my colleagues from SoftServe. And by the way, a few words about the company which all of us represent. The SoftServe, for those of you who don't know, is big Ukrainian, global basically, technological company specializing in consulting services and software development. We have a wide variety of projects in like all over the globe in almost any domain, I would say. Primarily, those are huge, complex projects where requirements, architecture, and scope is very, very important. So this is why I'm also excited to listen to this topic today. So our business analysis office is actually quite huge. You see, we have like over 400 business analysts currently in our company, and it was established in 2012. And let me brag a little bit. So just recently we have won an award from IABA, Advancement Award. So congratulations to us. I did a little bit of bragging, which is, I think, fine. So you can join our community. You have here some QR codes, and probably we will also add some links in the description of this video. And by the way, we are broadcasting on YouTube as well. So if you are watching us on YouTube, also feel free to put your comments in the chat on YouTube. We will copy it here. So we will, like our speakers will also see that. So I see some few more comments are here. Congratulations. Thank you so much. We have people from Katowice. Oh, wow, great. Okay, so that's about SoftServe. Also, we as a business analysis community have a lot of different courses. Unfortunately, we are not doing anything this year already because it's almost the end of the year, and basically the holiday season is about to start. But next year there will be a lot of exciting courses on business analysis. So if you wanna be informed of those courses, and you know, whenever which group starts and new updates, also please scan this QR code or use the link in the description to sign up for some updates. All right, enough of me talking. Let me start introducing our speakers today. We have two. And the first one is Markiyan Tsimura, who is lead business analyst at SoftServe. He has 6 years as BA in service management and information security, processes automation, 10 years of experience in IT, certification CBAP and ITIL, a lecturer and mentor all on also some of the courses which I mentioned earlier. And our second speaker is Oksana Vizor, who is also lead business analyst at SoftServe. She has 5 years in business analysis, 9 years in IT, also certified in CBAP and ITIL. They're pretty much identical. A lecturer and mentor. All right, welcome guys. I'll stop sharing and allow you to share your slides. Take it away.
Let me reshare my screen. Could you see my screen?
Yeah.
Good. Thanks a lot, Kirill, for such a good introduction. You have raised the bar for us really high. We'll try to match it today. We have topic today, as Kirill has mentioned, really interesting topic. We have like both themes combined. We have solution scope and requirements architecture. Both of these topics, they have unfairly low amount of information in the internet. Yet both of them are really crucial if you want to speak to your customer in visual language. You will hear this term visual language a lot today, but that is something that is tangible, something that you can visualize, not just a tons of text. That is why our today's agenda is solution scope and its components, requirement architecture and viewpoints, and combining those two, we'll show you how to frame business and user requirements in the solution scope template with one pager. We have used this template for, I guess, more than 20 or even 30 projects already, and it works really well. That's why we have thought about this idea of conducting this webinar on this topic. So yeah, before we start, please put the plus signs or whatever signs you can imagine into the chat who usually prepare solution scope on your projects, and who don't, just put minuses. Yeah, we would like to know better the context, how deeply we should go into the details. Good. Let me check the. Okay, we have a lot of pluses, some minuses. Good. We have a lot of pluses. That is why maybe I'll not go so much into the theoretical details, but still. Yeah, good. Yeah, and some minuses, good. We'll try to balance. We'll try to balance both and adjust our presentation on the go. Good one. What we promise from this presentation, yeah? We promise you that we are not going to overwhelm you with the heavy documents, with the scope specification. Instead, we are going to represent you with the one-pager template that will help you to boost understanding of your team, your stakeholders, your customer, of your solution. Yeah, because we understand that preparing those 20, 30 pages, usually that is lose-lose situation. You don't want to prepare them because it's overwhelming. Customers do want to read it. That is lose-lose situation. And yeah, by the way, you have seen this transition. There will be plenty of these transitions. There will be like Christopher Nolan movies. So you haven't paid it, but that's like you're in the movie theater today. So there will be a lot of them. With the one pager, yeah, of course, this thing, that's what we come to the end, puzzle by puzzle, putting together this one pager. That is why I'm not zooming in it right now. We are going to compose this one pager and show to you how this one pager is composed. Maybe one pager is slightly exaggerated. Sorry, with this one, I could become instantly the mayor of Kyiv with this exaggerated Jesus digitalization. Good, we can proceed. Yeah, what to expect from today? We are going to explain you how to build this solution scope and what are the components of it, what not to expect. We are not going to cover each of this modeling technique. Yeah, we are not going to cover every element of use case diagram, or every element of context diagram, or every element of decomposition. We won't be able to do this today because that'll take like 10 hours, but we are going to give you a solid background how to work with this one-pager deck template. Good. So let's start. That was the small intro. And yeah, of course, you'll see this visual language, because visual language is important because that's how you explain to your stakeholders and keep them all in the one page. Good. Let's start. I've told you there are a lot of animations. Oh my God. What do you want to achieve with the scope? When you elicit requirements, and then you have to analyze them, and then you model them. You just do this in order to represent business and user needs. That's why you have seen there are those use cases, system relations, solution decomposition, and plenty of other techniques. But that is one of the key benefits that solution scope can give you. Represent business and user needs. Then you just visualize them from different standpoints. That's why we are going to explain today the requirements architecture, because it helps you to look at your solution from different standpoints and satisfy your stakeholder and their requirements. The third one, create a common understanding of your product, solution, feature, because we understand we have different business analysts on the call and people who do the business analyst role or product managers, and they could work with different slices on the different levels. They could be product level, solution, feature level, but creating this common understanding, you cannot achieve it with just the text. You have to do this visual language. Fourth, enable collaboration with your stakeholders. That is not just about you, that you're going to create this perfect template and everybody will be happy when you show it to them. No, you usually collaborate on this template with your stakeholders, with your customer, with your sponsor, on different levels in the different ways of representation. And you basically, with this, all those techniques, you form the background for solution requirements. Those functional and non-functional requirements that you are going to specify, that is the solid basis for you to specify them. But I have told you a lot about like, oh, and this with the solution scope, you can achieve this and you can achieve that. But what you can really not achieve, you cannot achieve when you have all those meshed together and you will have this scope creep. Yeah, you'll not understand how to manage it properly. You'll have feature after feature not prioritized. That's why you're building it. But by the building it, what is solution scope? I guess, Oksana, I'm passing the mic to you, and you'll explain a little bit what is the scope and what is not the scope.
Thank you. Yes, so now we will talk a little bit more about scope and what is actually scope. On the previous slide, you have seen all those fancy bubbles just moving around. You have seen like a good picture and bad picture of those bubbles. And Markiyan has also mentioned the term visual language. That is why we would like to highlight that actually visual techniques, visual language are essential for scope definition, as actually they help to simplify those complex ideas, to put all those bubbles to some order. They help to align stakeholders and uncover actually some gaps or maybe some ambiguities through a shared understanding among the stakeholders what actually is scope. And here you may see one of the examples of functional decomposition, which helps us to translate those high-level scope into more detailed deliverables, those reducing risks and identifying some key dependencies and ensuring that we will receive some tangible outcomes, some practical value at every stage, actually. So it helps us to break down the complexity into some manageable pieces for a better understanding and execution of our project. And actually, it helps also to reduce this ambiguity by defining clear boundaries. And here we will see the next term, solution scope, because actually this solution scope sets those boundaries of the solution, framing the features we will have to implement, the processes, capabilities that are required, and actually all this helps us to meet our needs, to meet the stakeholders' needs, the business needs of our the requesters and of our customers. And as you may see on this example, we have seen just like a fancy picture of functional decomposition. Here you may see the real life example of functional decomposition. And actually even some large product companies, as for example, Apple, as you may see, also use visual language and visual techniques to manage scope. Of course, on this example, you may see the scope of the features for the first iPhone. And actually, why did they do this? Of course, it helped them to understand what do they have, what feature they have to implement, what resources do they need for this. And that is why they used visual language. Of course, it's maybe one of the most crucial parts if we are talking about scope definition, about setting those boundaries. Okay, but we have the next question here. Is actually decomposing the scope, everything about scope, or we need something more? Now we will see if solution scope is only about decomposing and breaking down the solution to some smaller parts. And we will see the visual pictures which will show us actually all the components of the scope. Here you may see the solution scope components. You may see like drivers on the left part, enablers on the right part, underlying factors, and all those things just contribute to the solution scope. If we are talking about drivers, first of all, we are talking about business requirements. It's about business need, about problem or opportunity to be addressed. Why are we doing this? What do we want to achieve? And business need, of course, is supported by goals and objectives. Of course, if we are talking about business need, we have to understand which are actually the ends we want to achieve. How are we going to achieve this business need, to cover this business need? And actually, solution must satisfy the business need to be considered successful. That is the main thing. It's about business requirements. And on the right side, you may see the enablers, the people, processes, and tools, which also actually contribute to the whole solution scope, which you may see in the center of this diagram. Here we are talking about actually our stakeholders. Who are we working with, for whom we are doing the solution? And one of the most important factors, actually very often underestimated, are underlying factors, assumptions, constraints, and dependencies and risks. They are very important because they help us to actually to limit the scope, to frame the scope, to frame the whole picture. What are we doing? And as a result, we will have the solution scope, which consists of organizational units, some business processes, features and capabilities to be implemented, some interfaces, applications, and components. And now we will look at this picture, this solution scope components at the real project example, just to understand how it all works in real life. And today we will show you the examples from a few projects, and one of the projects will be about implementation of corporate AI assistant, which actually can help our employees with the informational requests on different topics, HR related, IT related, like internal policies, some processes, services and products that company has, or some org charts, any other topic. For example, it may be any informational request, like how can I change my photo in corporate resources, how to report a day off, how many days of vacation I have, for example, or where to find some branding materials of our company. And here you may see the picture, very interesting picture, actually, on the right. We just asked the help of ChatGPT. And maybe this one is not appropriate enough, of course. ChatGPT missed to understand the scope of what we were asking and provided the picture where the employee actually communicates over the phone with the AI assistant. Well, sorry, but that's an interesting case. Maybe not the most appropriate one. That is why we just decided to prepare a few pictures of an employee collaborating with the AI assistant. And now you will see one more not so fancy
We had several.
animation. Yeah.
We are not proud of it, actually. I owe the explanation here because they are all generated on my ChatGPT, and I understand after generating this picture that I have to clear my ChatGPT memory because not sure what I was searching before it, but it seems like this picture is not appropriate as well. So we'll stop on this too, on the second picture, but still, that was
But
just too much.
actually, I have seen the other pictures, and they also are not the best one. And you may be grateful that we do not have like 2 or 3 hours for this webinar, whereas we would force you to watch all the pictures that we have in such situation, and maybe you would be tired of it.
True. I have already deleted everything from my
Oh, 6 fingers.
why six fingers. Well, you're asking why six fingers because we are really good at targeting our users, and we understand that corporate employees usually to do all the job they have to have 6 fingers, sometimes even 7, in order to just reply to the chat, reply to the customer, draw a context diagram. Well, we understand our customer really well. That is why there are 6 fingers. That is not hallucination of ChatGPT as well. This anime girl is not hallucination of my ChatGPT history. That's why we should proceed to the next slide, Oksana, because it's turning into something inappropriate.
Okay, let's move on. That was an interesting information before, and now we are turning back to some serious things. And now we will show you how all these solution scope components work on the example of this AI assistant implementation project. First of all, we will start from the business requirements, from the drivers. Why are we doing this? What is the main goal? And what actually we want to achieve with this project? On this scheme, we will show you like more high-level pictures. Of course, in reality, you will see it later on this one pager. Of course, we had like several needs to be covered. We had several goals and objectives to be achieved. And on this diagram, we just selected the most important things just to show you how it works in practice. And first of all, we started from the following, that some single touch point for information search was required for our employees. Of course, we have a huge ecosystem of corporate services, products, and different knowledge bases. And actually, it is rather challenging for our employees to find the required information. And they lose a lot of time for it. So one of the goals is to reduce information search time by 30% within 1 year after deployment. That's about business requirements. What is the driver for this all? Then we will move to the next one, to the enablers. These about our stakeholders we are working with, and about the processes that contribute to the solution scope. And first of all, it is of course product team and some external vendors to collaborate with, and integrations and knowledge base management process. They are the most crucial and important enablers of solution scope for this initiative. The next one, which is very important, as I have already mentioned, but usually underestimated, and maybe not all actually stakeholders in the project understand the importance of these underlying factors, are first of all assumptions. Of course, for this project, we had the list of different assumptions, risks, constraints, and dependencies. Here on this picture, just to show the holistic view, we will show you the example of one, for example, of the assumptions. It's that, for example, having 1,000 licenses for simultaneous usage will cover the whole company. That is one of the assumptions that we have. Of course, we are not sure about this, if it will be true or not in the future. And the next one is more about some limitations. It could be any limitations, some budgetary restrictions, time restrictions, technology or infrastructure restrictions, some political or regulatory standards, for example. And here we have the example of budgetary restriction, of budgetary constraint, that budget limit for implementation that we have is $300,000. So we have the restriction, which actually impact the scope of the solution. Of course, we have to refuse, for example, to implement some features if the budget will be more than is the limit for this initiative. If we are talking about the next underlying factor, I mean dependencies, here we mean some other tasks, projects, or anything else that relies actually on the completion of different other things. So we cannot proceed with this initiative if we will not, for example, implement some other things, tasks, or projects. Of course, we have like interdependency. And if we are talking about AI assistants, first of all, we have the dependency on the databases. Of course, there is the need to aggregate 3 different databases into one. Of course, you may list other dependencies for this project and for any other, but here this is the most important one. And the next factor is the risk. I think that most of you are familiar what is risk about, so we do not need to have some theory here. And one of the most important risks here is that we might have wrong cost calculation for required for AI infrastructure, and that is actually the risks for this project. Of course, actually, it may impact the whole result, and it can even stop implementation of some modules, features, and actually it may impact the achievement of our business need, of coverage of our business need. And if we are talking about drivers, enablers, and underlying factors, if we take into account all this, we will have the next one, the solution scope. We will understand the organization units, for example, that means our target audience for whom we are doing this all. Actually, we are doing this for all employees of our company, but for the first iteration, we are taking into account the limited audience, project managers role. The next one is about business processes. And here we would like to cover, first of all, onboarding and HR and IT related knowledge search, just to simplify, to streamline this information search for our employees, and in the first iteration for project managers role. Of course, they lose a lot of time just searching the right information. And taking into account all this, we need to implement the following capabilities and feature in this AI assistant. And some of them you may see here on the screen. These are unified information touchpoint. It was mentioned at the very beginning, and I think this is the most important here, not to have this strange user experience when you have to search some information in different resources and you may not even know where to find the required information. And one of the next capabilities that we would like to implement is the involvement of the agent when required for some more complicated use cases, for example, which cannot be resolved by search. And of course, analytics to to have the basis for decision making, to understand how to improve and what to do next. And some more components of solution scope are components and applications, which actually can be merged into one piece. And here, with the AI assistant, we are talking about some language models, about corporate knowledge bases. Of course, we may implement the best AI assistant ever, but if we do not have the corresponding knowledge bases, of course, it won't be helpful for the employees. And of course, one of the components is UI interface for the employees and integrations with our corporate products and knowledge bases. And interfaces for the employees to have possibility to collaborate with our AI assistants. So to avoid the situation we have seen on the picture when the employee is talking over the phone with the AI assistant. So we have to understand what will be the interfaces. And first of all, we are talking about our corporate communicator, Microsoft Teams, mobile and desktop version, of course, and standalone web application. And now you may see the whole picture of the solution scope for the AI assistant for information search for the employees in our company. Of course, it is rather like high level and limited on this picture, but it may provide you the holistic view of how all these components work together. And now we can move on. We will review the scope of this project even in more details a little bit later, and you will understand that actually all of these components are like wider. Of course, it's not always about like one business goal, and it's not like one risk or one assumption, for example, identified.
Yeah, I'm going to expand on that a little bit later and to show you how all these components come up to this one-pager view. Of course, we're not going to mention all of them, but still on the sharing, you will see all other assumptions, all other dependencies, all other constraints, and how to build upon them. But first, I would like to transition from what Oksana has showed, like this theory basis, into how you as the business analyst can bring value to your team, bring value to your customer, how you can visualize all this stuff. And we are going to show you how requirements architecture supports solution scope. But wait, of course, what is requirements architecture? Because every time when I see the definitions of requirement architecture, they just blow my mind. I'll not ask you like, do you know about requirements architecture? I would slightly complicate my question, and my question will be, what do you imagine when you see this term, requirements architecture? Just 1, 2, maximum 3 words into the chat. What do you imagine requirements architecture? For some of my colleagues, I know you really well. If you're still imagining this anime girl, just clear this memory. Just go into the chat and type and structure. 2, well, I like Roman comment. 2 words, 2, great. Structure, scope decomposition, how requirements are organized, connections model. I like this one, connections model. Serhi, those are just 2 words. A diagram, that is great. Maybe requirements as the part of an ecosystem. Framework, good one. If someone else has also some kind of images in your head, just put them into the chat. That is really valuable because that shows me in what direction to explain the next slides. And thanks for sharing. 3, mind map. True, that's also something like in my head, how I imagine this. Good one. Okay, I'll show you the definition. Requirement architecture, and I'll read because I cannot memorize it. Requirements architecture is the structure representation requirements to ensure they collectively support solution delivery achieved by utilizing viewpoints, standard conventions addressing specific stakeholder concerns, and views which are tailored representation of solution aspect derived from those viewpoints. And always when I read this, my reaction is like, the what? Like, what is this? What actually is this viewpoints and views, how to understand them? That is like from my face, the reaction. That is why I'm going to explain it from a little bit different perspective. Yeah. Let's do it this way, because I think that'll be more appropriate. Let's imagine the building, yeah, and you have different stakeholders, and different stakeholders have different perception of building. Yeah, like when you're building the solution, the building in the center is also some kind of a solution. You have different stakeholders. You have salesperson, and salesperson look at it from the perspective of how it looks, how it feels, how to sell it, some fancy selling points, some fancy photos that you can show to your customers. And that is like basically the view of salesperson is the photo. But the view for plumber, he or she has different interests. They are not interested in just the photo of the building. They're interested in particular blueprint with pipes, and that is their viewpoint. And you'll have plenty of different stakeholders, and for some stakeholders you're going to show one diagram, for another diagram, and you'll have different views because your stakeholders are basically the views and their perceptions, and you're going to show the one solution from different angles. And when we are talking like transitioning to our BA language, viewpoints are your stakeholders' perception, how they look at your product, solution, feature. That doesn't matter. This hierarchy doesn't matter. And your views, I haven't edited this, and your views are different requirements representation through models, suitable techniques, doesn't matter. And when you're organizing and structuring views and viewpoints, you are creating requirements architecture. And now I'm going to expand on the same example that Oksana has showed you, but turn it into something more tangible for your stakeholders. Because when you're framing your solution scope, basically requirements representation from different angles, different dimension, they just show you the full scope of your solution. Let's take a look. Yeah. When you have, for example, in this AI assistant that company implement in order to reduce the lost time of their employees, of course, one of the stakeholders will be HR department. And their viewpoint, its requirements and design from an organizational user journey perspective. They might not be interested in the integrations, in the data sensitivity, in security. They would be interested in how this organizational user journey from end to end is covered and how you can really help employees in this company in the search of appropriate information. You can use with the views. What is views? Basically your different modeling techniques, organizational charts, impact mapping, service blueprint, user journey, and you can name it and name it and name it, how different views can help them understand how your solution will work and how to collaborate with you on this solution. And when we'll pick service blueprint, of course, in this lecture, I'm not going to go into the details of what is service blueprint, how to build the service blueprint. That'll be the next that'll be the next webinar. At least I hope so, that after this, all inappropriate jokes, Kirill and Marta will give us an invitation for some other webinar after this.
Only if we promise to make more inappropriate pictures with ChatGPT.
More anime girls into the presentation, and we'll proceed to the next one. Good.
And more animations.
More animations. So Christopher Nolan will call us and tell us like Tenet 2. Good. You're going to be the producer of this movie. Sorry, that is off top because that is already 7:44 in Lviv. So yeah.
Kirill, sorry, 10 hours. It's only the intro.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Good. And you'll have the service blueprint that will help your stakeholders to understand end-to-end user journey. By the way, all these artifacts, of course, some of the sensitive data we have removed from those artifacts. Some of them, as far as I can see, we haven't because we were lazy or maybe we hadn't have much time. But
No,
they'll
we were too busy. We were too busy to generate those anime girls.
Exactly. We couldn't generate it. That's why we are using the real examples. And this representation, this view, will help your HR department or similar stakeholder. It will help you to understand the associate flow. It will help you to explain their experience. It will help you to measure some lost time, yeah? Like how much time they spent in the chat, how much time they spent searching this information. It will help you to see end-to-end process, associate actions. It will help you to understand how to measure it and what supporting process to use, how this HR department or maybe some related departments will work with knowledge-based maintenance. And that is just one of the representation that help you to form what will be in the scope and what will be out of scope and why it should be out of scope due to some constraints that Oksana has showed you, maybe due to budgetary constraints or due to time constraints or due to resources or due to technology. And that is how you build this whole thing. If you have second stakeholder, you might have IT department, and they are looking at things from different angle, from different perspective, like in this picture with the building. You have requirements from the perspective of product ecosystem, whether they match this product ecosystem, whether they align with the security policies, whether there are some security incidents, how this data is transitioned from one system to another, how the integration works. And you'll have different views. You'll have data flow diagrams, you'll have ERDs, data dictionaries, process modeling, activity diagrams, you name it. You know all of those techniques, or at least you are using some of them. And this one, data flow diagram, yeah. Oh, that is some mix between the DFD 0 and DFD 1, maybe not the best artifact, but still, that's what we were using. And that's answer the questions whether those data transitions are secure. What is the product ecosystem? What is the data governance? How the encryption works? How those data flows go back and forth? And that's how you represent it. Of course, for the HR department, it might not be relevant, but for your second major stakeholder, it will be, and it will help you to understand how your solution will work. And for the chief financial officer, and that might be the toughest stakeholder because usually you work with a financial statement, and that is usually the approver and sponsor of your solution. Requirements, he or she is interested in the requirements from the financial feasibility viewpoint, from the company goals, from the view of those financial KPIs. You're working with the business cases, business model canvases, lean canvases, KPI structures. And if you're going to show to him or her this lean canvas, at least on this one page, you will try to explain what is the value proposition, what is the cost structure, what are the revenue stream, and whether this investment is worth it. CFO might not be interested so much. Well, of course, CFO might be interested in the user flow, but usually the cost structure, revenue streams will be much more relevant to CFO. And that is another viewpoint to your solution. And maybe those cost structure and revenue stream will set some constraints or highlight some risks that are going to frame your solution and your solution scope. And how it will look like, that more animation. Allow this. No, I don't know why we have put so many of those into this presentation. And that's how you're going to form this high-level solution scope. Of course, I'm not going into each detail. How do you build decomposition? How to build context diagram? That is all separate topics. But at least in this one pager, you are trying to explain and to collaborate with your stakeholders. With the CTO or CFO, they will be interested in the link canvas or maybe some other canvas. And with the context diagram, you're going to work with IT. And with the service blueprint, you're going to work with the HR. And with the decomposition, you're going to work with your product manager or your delivery manager or your project manager, because you got to do this work breakdown structure. And all those use cases that we have here are going to turn into some, at least maybe those highlighted with gray, as far as I remember, they were not implemented because they were out of scope. I see Oksana is noting because she was doing this, not me. I am just presenting here. Then that's it. And what do you have? We'll have this more about in the next slides, but those business needs and high-level need statements, that is usually your business requirements that show you the need of the business you have to cover, like achieve 60% adoption rate of virtual assistant in order to decrease this lost time. That is the business requirement. And with this constraints, risks, assumptions, you are basically setting the frames for your solution. Because of course you might have budget limitations, or of course you might have risk of low adoption of your AI assistant. That is why all those things impact, like the left side impacts the right side, and on the that is
Actually, sorry, this left part is from what we have seen on this solution scope components map. It's about drivers, enablers, underlying factors.
Yeah, thanks, Oksana, for commenting on that, because that is the like expanded version, because I'm expanding on what Oksana has presented to you. And of course, you will have the background for solution requirements in your particular solution scope. But that is just some high level picture that I expanded on what Oksana has told you about the solution scope, where you have your business requirements, where you have that basically trigger the creation of your solution, where you have all those components, modules, integrations, process flows, decomposition of features in the middle, where you have all those things regarding dependencies, constraints, risks, assumption that frame your solution scope. Good. And by the way, of course, I'll answer all the questions, and Oksana will answer all the questions after our main part of the presentation. That will be like in 10 or 15 minutes. But you can already start typing the questions if you have some questions when we are presenting. Good. One more solution scope one pager. I have barely, well, I have changed there like 5% in order to present it here today. And so maybe just some budgetary statement or some systems or some names of stakeholders. Of course, I remove all of this, maybe not all. There are a lot of information. That is why I have put it here like deck, yeah, because that is one pager, but that's more like a visual deck in Lucid, in Miro, in any other tool that that is suitable for you. And let's proceed. So what was this project about? I'll just quickly overview it, and that is one more view on the solution scope template. Of course, those modeling representation can differ from one pager to another. It doesn't mean that all the one pages should have context diagram, use case diagram, decomposition. Some of them will have the process flow. Some of them will be might have much more details. Yeah, and when I searched through my Lucid, there are like 1 to 20 or 30 of them, and they look slightly different, but in the essence, they all remain the same because they have all those required viewpoints according to the business needs. And speaking about this project, that is the implementation of feedback management system in enterprise. And our goals with, sorry, I just want to a little bit zoom in here. Yeah, good. Our goals was, were get actionable and structured feedback from our employees. Yeah, that's why we have built this feedback management system. Involve responsible employees, managers, service agents to feedback management. Because if you're just gathering the feedback from employees, well, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, like there should be responsible people who are working with this feedback management system. And when you have like 10,000 plus user requests per month, yeah, when you have like this even more sometimes, you got to make those responsible employees work with your feedbacks in order to make data-driven decisions regarding product improvements. And there were like 4 or 5 meetings to set up key results, what we wanted to achieve, what we want to have response rate, how many products with the feedbacks we wanted to cover, what NPS we wanted to achieve. That was this whole story, the work with the KPIs and with the C-level executive on how to implement such things. That is like the completely another story and completely another webinar. But still, what I wanted to show you that everything like Oksana has showed you on this frame starts with the business requirements. What is the business need? And if our business need wants to set up feedback management for internal corporate products, yeah, when I am requesting, I don't know, laptop in the company, and this laptop doesn't work or doesn't have some adapter or doesn't have really poor battery, I would like to leave the feedback. But if nobody works with this feedback, well, that all feedback management doesn't make sense. That's why we had those goals, this coverage rate, this response rate. Everything starts from the business need. You got to know what is the why behind your solution, because it's really hard to do competitive, well marketed and with the proper market fit and with the proper value proposition if you do not know the need and business requirements behind it. What we were doing next, we are understanding who are our user types. Yeah, that service consumers who basically provide those services, service providers service consumers who consume those services and leave the feedback, service providers who just grant those different services in the organization, and IT management or then C-level executives who are understanding that they need this tool and they basically are the sponsor. And we had to understand those user types. And what is the user types? They are basically the source of your stakeholder requirements. And how do they transition into something tangible? You are starting to create use case diagram, because the use case diagram basically tells you what use cases you're going to cover with your solution. In our case, that is like providing feedback, receiving this notification, processing this feedback, working with the feedback, communicating this feedback to management back and forth. All those were the use cases. Doesn't mean that we created all those beautiful artifacts in one day. That took like the whole project was 6 months, And working with all this was constant. That wasn't like in one day we create solution scope. No, we have started with the business requirements, then switched to the users, then worked on the use cases, and the solution has changed several times. And I have like version 1 of it, and then version 2, which looks slightly different because we have pivoted it in the middle of our project journey. But still, the use case diagram helps our stakeholders to understand what key use cases we have to cover. And when we have understood it, we have switched to components. We understood that there is a lot of work to do with this enterprise service management system that basically processes those tickets that require the feedback. We understand that we have to do a lot of work in the integration platform. We understand that we have to do a lot of work in this feedback management system with the feedback notification, chat page, how we are going to work with the dashboard with the feedback. And this visual language with all those items you see, those green items we have completed, those attention, like attention marks, well, they required a lot of attention, and I'll explain a bit later. There were like risks with this feedback notification due to email monitoring. All those things help you to frame it and to show what is in the in scope, what is out of the scope. By the way, all those gray highlighted areas were out of the scope. And it doesn't mean that it's out of the scope. We are not going to do this. Yeah, we have put it into the second iteration, the third iteration. For example, this red one, feedback management on mobile, we have removed completely from the scope, and it wasn't released properly because it didn't support our business requirements. And that's when you just visualize all those things, you have this complete picture. And the scope is really important, but the things that are out of scope, sometimes they're even more important. We had at least 15 user stories from top management that almost like all those 15 user stories were put into the second or third iteration, and they're put out of the scope because we couldn't, due to the constraints of 6 months, we couldn't implement them. That's why AI for thematic analysis of feedbacks, or benchmarking with other companies, or targets management, they were all put into the second, third iteration, and some of them were completely removed from the scope, because out of scope is also important if you want to avoid the scope creep. But if you want to validate your requirements, you have to specify those, or better even, visualize it. Yeah, like here in this picture, when you have them visualized, you can talk to your stakeholders and you can talk to your sponsors. And of course, context diagram. When we are working with our product team and with external vendor who gave us like the basis for this feedback management system. Well, I know that it's not the best context diagram because it's slightly turning into the data flow diagram. Maybe it's not correct and true orthodox context diagram, but still it was clear and transparent for our product team how to implement it and what are the relations between the systems, what integration we have to build, and how our key users will interact with our system. That was the most important thing to cover for them because, well, of course, they cared about the use cases or the process flow, but for dev team, it was really important to understand this context diagram. And of course, like all those things were shaped by dependencies, constraints, assumptions, like the assumption that 400 licenses will cover our needs for next year. This assumption was true, but what if it wasn't, and we haven't planned it properly and we haven't calculated and analyzed the data? It means that maybe our budget will not be under five. Well, it was bigger, but still, I just switched the budget number because we are sharing it on the YouTube. That's why I'm not allowed to share the budget, but still, you have the constraints and time frame. Of course, the time frame of 6 months limited most of the features and most of this fancy stuff that management requested, because we are concentrated on the really important thing, like the core and the dependencies. I'll just mention one of the dependencies because that is not like explanation of the case study. This presentation is not about it, because that'll be a little bit overwhelming because there are a lot of details in this project. But why I had this exclamation mark near the notification? Because we have faced the problem that emails sent from our feedback notification system, we got to whitelist those emails because our spam system just put all those feedback notification into the spam. And if it's putting all of those into the spam, could we achieve the initial goal of response rate of 25%? Like from 4 tickets, each one should be completed with a response? Of course, no. Of course, no. That's why all these tiny pieces, and sometimes not tiny because it took like for our great manager Yuri to cover like, I don't know, maybe 10 meetings with technical guys in order to whitelist all those emails. And those are not so tiny, but when I tell about tiny pieces, it means that there are plenty of the details, but this whole thing help you to frame this visual language, and Oksana will proceed a little bit more about that, just in order to summarize our webinar for today. Oksana.
Yeah, today you have heard some information about solution scope components, requirements architecture, views, and viewpoints. And now we just will sum up how it all works using this one-pager, this vision and scope one-pager that we suggest. And now you will see the example that Markiyan has talked about recently. It's about feedback management platform. And first of all, if you look at the left side, you will see the first part. It's about business requirements. It's about why are we doing this and what do we want to achieve. It's about actually the drivers for our solution for this initiative, to understand what is the need, what problem are we covering, or opportunity enablement, and what are the goals and objectives. So this part is all about business requirements. The next one is target audience. Again, do not sleep. It's about our stake.
I was remembering all those days when we were doing this project, and we were like tight on budget and time frames, but actually that was one of the projects where we have done everything in the time frame. That was like miracle. Maybe that was due to this one-pager solution scope, or maybe not. Yeah.
Actually,
those were like,
as far as I remember, this one-pager solution scope started from this initiative. This was the first usage of this.
So that is the original one.
Yeah.
OG.
Yeah, and this second highlighted part is about the target audience for whom we are doing this. It's about our stakeholders, as Markiyan has already told, about service consumers and service providers, and the list of the more you may see the more detailed list of the stakeholders. It's the enablers part on our solution scope like view that we have seen today during our webinar. The next part is about the underlying factors that will be highlighted on this diagram if Markiyan will stop sleeping.
You see those animations, they just put me into the situation that I have to handle it.
Yeah, use cases, it's about stakeholder requirements actually. And here you will see the whole picture, meaning the left part, showing all those scope components and the different visual techniques, which actually is the visual language to show the views of our stakeholders. And this one use case diagram is actually the view of our stakeholders and more of business stakeholders. It's about what use cases shall be covered, what is important to cover for our target audience. The next one is about technical part. It's as you may see, this is not so, I don't know, orthodox, yeah, context diagram.
Well, that was
It's
that was something that I have mentioned. I don't know why I used this word. I don't know.
It's almost context diagram. That it actually our way of communication with the technical team, with the IT team, or with the developers team. It depends on the solution. In this case, with the technical teams that were involved in implementation of this feedback management platform, because actually several technical teams were involved into this. And the next one is about use case. It's about, sorry, functional decomposition use cases. It was in the previous example that we have shown you about AI. Here we have like the breakdown to the to the components. I see that some people from the auditory like orthodox data. Okay. This functional decomposition is about breakdown to the smaller components to understand what do we need to cover in the scope of first iteration or maybe in the scope of the main project. It doesn't show like the second iteration. And this actually is our visual language to communicate with our dev team in this part course. From this breakdown structure, we will understand the scope of features we have to cover by this feedback management platform, and what we have to do, what we have to implement, what is in scope and what is out of scope. The next one, which is also important, is about analytics. How we will measure the outcomes of this solution. And this part is very important for our business stakeholders. Of course, it's our visual language with the business stakeholders, with the decision makers, to show the outcomes, how all this will work, how we will measure and how we will understand, how we will present the results and all this feedback management process to our business stakeholders. And as well, we have, if you will show the whole picture, we have also two more parts that are not highlighted yet. One of them is about underlying factors. It's about including all the constraints, assumptions, risks, and dependencies that may impact our scope. First, those underlying factors actually are framing the scope of our solution or project or initiative, whatever. And the part that is not highlighted here on the left side, it's about solution scope components. Actually, this is the background that will be converted actually to our solution requirements later. So here you may see the whole picture, how it all works together. So to understand why have we told you today about the solution scope, drivers, enablers, some underlying factors and components, and then we just switch to requirements architecture, view, and viewpoints. And here on this one pager, all this works together. So you have the left side, it's about the why are we doing this, from what it all starts, and it's showing all those solution components that we have reviewed at the beginning of the webinar. And then you may see the visual part. So by applying different visual techniques, we may communicate with our stakeholders. And when you are thinking about visual part, of course, as you have seen even from today's example, this one and AI, you may have noticed that we have different visual techniques. When you are thinking about which techniques to apply, of course, it's not always about like context diagram, use case, and decomposition, as Markiyan has already mentioned. Think first of all, why are you trying to visualize something? With what part of stakeholders, with what target audience you would like to communicate using this or that visual technique? And by doing this, you will have the chance to select the proper visualization and to have like a live document, a live one-pager, not just like some dead document, just I did it, of course. I was said it is good to do this, but a live document for collaboration with different stakeholder groups. And actually it works in practice. Of course, as Markiyan has already mentioned, we have used this one pager for many projects. I don't know exactly how many, but it was really more than 20, if I'm not mistaken.
True, true. And of course, if the project is not, well, some projects will not require such a comprehensive approach with all the diagrams. Some projects will require much more than just this visual representation. There are like more diagrams. I had a project that required like more explanation to these diagrams because stakeholders were not tech savvy and they required a lot of explanation, but still, yeah, Ivan, we have been using pretty much the same structure, but by the same structure, we mean when you have the left side with the business requirements, with the user groups, with the constraints, more like text part, and the right part, when you have different representations, if there is a need for such representation, and if there are some linkage to some other pages, I don't know, even to Figma with the mockups. We have been using it also as the collaboration place where people could find all the linkages to different areas. Yeah, and we also have the question from Katarina. I'll just read this question before we, the Q&A haven't started yet, but still. How do you handle all of this? Do you keep the info in a whiteboard and share with all needed stakeholders? Don't you move those details in Confluence or whatever requirements management tool? We basically use Lucid or any other tool, it doesn't matter, but in our case, we use Lucid and we collaborate in the Lucid. And our stakeholders have license to the Lucid and they collaborate with us in the Lucid, and we manage access to those boards and with the editors and commenters accesses. And that works well. In Asana or Jira, we work with the requirements, solution requirements, functional and non-functional. And in Lucid, we just do everything, like all those pieces. We do not transfer, even though we have Confluence, we do not transfer this in Confluence because we had such experience, but this duplication and maintaining two sources information doesn't make much sense for us, especially when our stakeholders have the at least view access to the Lucid board. It is much more native, and it's much more natural to look at it in the one place. So yeah, we do not transfer it.
The main point here is to keep your requirements interrelated. For example, if you have whiteboard on Lucid and you have some project management tool, just to link all both of them, so it will be easier to find.
By the way, well, because we are all
and one more
about
moving the visuals from Lucid, for example, to Confluence. I had an experience with the external client. They do not use Lucid, and actually they do not use any of this working team do not use any of visual tools. Of course, actually, before the project was started, they didn't even know what is business analysis and why do they need it. And they were fascinated by all those fancy visual techniques. And the working team had access by link to the Lucid, but we just added PDFs to their internal Confluence for them to have all those visual parts after the project is finished. So if there is a need, of course, you can export like PDFs or PNG, any actually format that is required.
I'll do one interruption. So we could officially finish the
Oh,
the
okay.
presentation part.
Yeah.
And so if you want to build a solution that truly satisfies your stakeholder diverse needs, you either do something ad hoc and just add artifacts and put them in different places and just have those all unalienable wants and needs and hope for the best, or you just build a solution scope. And it doesn't matter whether it's this one pager, it doesn't matter whether it's some other template, but the most important thing is to have those viewpoints represented that you can show and collaborate, analyze and model those business and user needs, whether it's the use cases, system relations, solutions decomposition, process modeling, user journey. It depends on your purpose. But the most important thing is to visualize them and to analyze them, and that'll greatly benefit the specification of your solution requirements and validation of your requirements, because different stakeholders from different angles will be on the same page when you're showing this. So yeah, that was the official part. And that let's proceed to Q&A.
Officially.
The second question from Katarina. Did you need to educate your stakeholders how to use the whiteboard structure because it might look chaotic from the first glance? Yes, as with every technique, usually when you look at some other boards that I have, I'm not sure whether I'll be able to share some of them because I don't know what information is represented on those boards, especially when we are doing this live. But maybe I'll show them. I usually have this line like work zone where we are working, and where we have all those source of truth modeling representations, and of course we guide stakeholders like it usually takes 3 to 5 minutes to show them that this is the part where you have like, let me go back to, I don't know, too much animations. Let it be this one. This is the part where we have our goals, and this is the part where we have our users, and this is the part where we have collaborated on the technical stuff, and this is the part where you can see the decomposition. And it usually takes 3 to 5 minutes to explain where are all those components. In terms of when we are collaborating, of course, it takes more time because me and Oksana, we usually do it on the fly. We are during those meetings with stakeholders, we usually draw those diagrams on them. And of course, it takes some time to explain to them like what those things mean. And of course, it requires the explanation of what this diagram means, what that diagram means. Sometimes we just simplify those diagrams and do not even use maybe some official, or as we have mentioned, orthodox notation. God bless Orthodox, I like this comment. We might not use those notations, and in order to understand, when we have done proper stakeholder analysis, we understand what stakeholders could better understand, what not, or at least when we have some time, even 5 to 10 minutes to explain that is the structure, that is the logic behind the structure. This time investment usually shows the great value, because after that, they even require such representations, and they mention like, oh, okay, but how does it work in the decomposition? Please decompose me this solution, or please decompose me this feature. When you educate them, they are starting to talk to you in basically in this business analysis, product management, system analysis language. Maybe Oksana, maybe you have something to add.
Yeah, and actually, by educating our stakeholders, we are investing time for better and faster collaboration in the future. And the stakeholders which have already the practice to work with such whiteboards actually are expecting the same approaches from other business analysts they are collaborating with. We have also one question in Q&A. I will just cover one part because I see here that I will read the question because actually we can move to this one. On your experience, when you selected an artifact, some business model canvas, product vision board, use case diagram for a specific type of stakeholders, did it always work well? Or sometimes you could see confusion and needed to change the artifact or transform it into just textual description? Any examples from real life when something went not according to your scenario? This is actually a good question to answer after the question about education of our stakeholders. Of course, from my experience, I had vice versa. When you had to transform textual description to visual part. Of course, any visual technique is better for collaboration with stakeholders than even very good textual description. Of course, it is better perceived by the stakeholders. You can see the whole picture. It is easier to navigate and to understand than just to read a few pages of the text.
But
so even here,
even when you do textual description, just try to do it with some hierarchy in mind, with some
structure,
color legend, with some those components. I remember really good. Well, there are always some confusion, especially when you work with the architects. Yeah, because they might have pretty different view on the way that solution might work, and they might be more into the details than most of the stakeholders, and they might well, usually always my confusion was what color legend do I use? Yeah, they were always asking me like, by the way, you have mentioned this color, like why those are green, and what do you mean by the green, and what do you mean by the blue? But this component is blue, but the next one is the lighter blue. What does it mean? And yeah, even in this context diagram, I haven't represented the legend. That was like one of my first one pager. Right now, I'm always adding the legends, like what all those things mean, like what the arrow mean, what the highlight mean, what the color mean. And regarding real life examples where something went wrong, well, there were plenty of the examples when something went wrong, especially when we are using some more complicated techniques like even service blueprint. With a service blueprint, I used to believe that it is something that is easy to understand and easy to read. But, well, actually, well, where we had this service blueprint, it was somewhere here, I guess. Yeah. With the service blueprint, of course, it requires some explanation that we have several layers. One layer is user journey. Another layer is line of interaction, those on-stage actions that your target user see, and what is behind the stage, and what is supporting process. But usually when you take some time and just go through this and explain it to your stakeholders, that is the great investment of time, because sometimes there are confusions, and the proper explanation, self-descriptive tasks, self-descriptive components in the diagram, usually proper legend, because here I don't have proper legend. I was just using the color, well, the lighter
50 shades of blue.
50 Shades of Blue, because that is the blueprint. That is why I use. That's why I'm in the blue shirt right now, because I was using.
By the way, I have seen
blueprints.
orange blueprint.
Yeah, that is true. But sometimes, of course, it is confusing, especially for different audiences. That's why you have to invest some time to explain. Good, we have more questions. But I have another part of it. What tools do you use for notating at meetings? Do you record them and then transcribe, or do you manage to do the notation on go? I try to do the notation on go, but usually I use Copilot in Microsoft Teams, or how Copilot thinks that I am calling him Copilot. I don't know why. That is just the way he thinks about me. But I use transcriptions, and I usually don't like to listen to recordings, or I just listen them with the second multiplier. It'll be great to have like multiply the speed to the 3. But with the Copilot, I really like Copilot, especially for last 3 months, because he or she or it, I don't know, do a really great job at helping me to remember what was going on. But usually I'm trying on the go to at least set some structure, or at least even to note it into my notebook
And
or into
even
the iPad.
if you don't use Copilot, you may just notate on go during the meeting. It doesn't mean that you have to use the good and proper wording at first time. You just need to notate the sense, some short phrases, for example, for you, and then you will have time later to make it more, I don't know, good looking and more appropriate.
True. No, I'm not
And
sure
another one question
I'm not sure whether I'm
is,
going to do this, but still, if
oh,
I'll have,
okay,
oh my God,
you are taking the risks.
I'm taking the risk. That's
Okay.
why if you'll see the termination
And
from
you will show my project here.
yeah, that's why I'll show
Okay,
your
thank you.
project, not mine.
Okay,
That
that's good.
is a good one. I can remember what I can show and what I cannot show. That
And while you are looking for some other
no,
feature,
that is related to the security one. I cannot show that. That would be a disaster if I am going to show that. Maybe this one, even though it's not also the uh, I can't remember where I had this vision and scope here. No, Oksana, that is your
you are
project.
showing mine,
Sorry.
my project.
That wasn't intentional. That wasn't
Okay,
intentional.
but you may show it. I think it's
No,
maybe
no,
more
no,
appropriate than
no.
some other projects.
Well, we have NDA, but although this project, if I show something from the project, that I usually know what to show, take into account my also sub role as control owner of access controls as SoftServe. That's why that's why I can at least show something. But usually, well, even in those small representations, they don't usually all look that great. Sometimes they might look not so well structured when we are working more collaboratively with our stakeholders. Yeah, this also could be the case. They might not be so perfectly aligned and look like this, but well, that is more than enough. There was also some really great question. I don't know whether we have run out of time or not. That's maybe Kirill or Marta will tell me. But there was great question like, do you consider implementation team as one of the stakeholders, and to what extent they involved in one-page creation? To the maximum extent, especially when we are talking about some technical stuff. But it depends on what you mean by the implementation team. Usually we involve project manager, of course, to do the decomposition, or product manager. Of course, we are not going to do the context diagram without good validation and several calls with the architect in order to better understand whether everything is aligned properly. So of course, because if that'll be just like we have prepared everything without engaging any stakeholders, Well, that might look good, but whether it will work good, I really doubt. I really doubt. That's why, yeah, like maximum involvement. Copilot, Oksana.
We have
That is the
we have one more question in Q&A. This one pager, it's about feedback management platform approach for short 6 months project. What is the maximum length project for this approach you have? Good question.
For mine, it was like the
Yeah.
1 year project. I cannot show
Yeah.
it because,
Mhm.
as Carlo has mentioned, some things I can show, like in this presentation or the one that I showed you. Some things I do not. But the Lancius was 1 year. And after that, well, it continued, but we have completely switched because we have made the first iteration, like the big release. And then I understood that I cannot maintain it more and it won't bring more value. That's why we have created that is like the version 3 or something like this, and proceed from the version 3 and made the first one like obsolete just for historical references, and that's it. And that's it. We did, no. Yeah, Karela, we'll try to answer the question at 1.5 speed. Sometimes I do the presentation at 1.5 speed, so I don't know. The whiteboard provides a holistic view, and Power BI systems like Jira has the system functionality in small pieces. My question is, how do you approach creation, reviewing more specific elements and details such as data, dictionary rules, etc.? For data, dictionary rules, etc. Well, it depends on the informational architecture of the project, because sometimes we use the SharePoint for the references. Well, SharePoint sucks with the tables, but still,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that we do everything in this Lucid. We of course have a lot of references, some of them to the Excel because Excel is the most powerful tool, and some of them to the SharePoint, some of them. If we need a lot of text explanation, of course, we might use Confluence as well, or even in Jira or Asana to specify all the details. It doesn't mean that we have to put everything into the Lucid chart. Lucid chart is usually for having this explanation of really big chunks of different architectural parts, process parts, and visualization. Oksana, do we have more questions? Yeah, just one more from
Yeah,
Savi.
we have one more question. How do you usually present the one pager? Do you schedule a workshop or and gather all kinds of stakeholders to show everything to everyone, or do you provide them with access to the file and focus specific stakeholders on specific parts of the one pager, like the composition for implementation, SME and PM, business requirements and performance for sponsor? What works the best?
I bet that if we share it before the meeting, there will be like 10% or maybe
Nobody will
5% who will go
come to the
and look
meeting.
at it properly. Like usually this do not happen. And from my experience, that doesn't, well, as I have told you, this thing is dynamic. Yeah, it doesn't mean that we prepare like the best in the universe one pager and go to the full scale validation. Agile projects do not let us do this. We usually create this piece by piece. Business requirements, validating business requirements, good. Context diagram, created context diagram. But usually we have separate meetings for different viewpoints. That's why I have showed you this viewpoints and stakeholders, because well, we're not going to share with the architect, look at our how our service blueprint like, especially in terms of the lost time and measuring this thing, because usually it won't make much sense. So we can present it, but not go into the details. But yeah, such things happen that we have presented like the whole one pager, but it wasn't successful from my experience because it took too much time. Usually it makes much more sense when you have different stakeholders, they already know different chunks of this one pager. And after that, well, of course you can share it because then they usually start to collaborate it, to comment on it. But at least you have to present something so they'll have this basis on what to work with, and animation for you for the end of the meeting, because that is the narrative through the whole presentation, this Christopher Nolan reference. That's why it seems like we have covered everything, or not? Did you ever? Because I see
questions.
Gorilla is already looking at us, and I am just like,
No, you're good. You're good. As long as you don't do more animation, you can answer the questions.
I'll reverse this one, so it'll be like -1. It doesn't count. I don't know. Did you ever get any diagrams from stakeholders or product owners and needed to work with it for one pager for it as well? Yeah, of course. I usually get the diagrams from architects. Oh, those are beautiful diagrams. I hope that they are not. Or maybe they are. Oh, no, I'm kidding. I'll have an unpleasant morning tomorrow, but still, of course. Usually I have to redraw them or or rephrase them a little bit in order to make them more readable. But sometimes they're really great, and I just embed them into the one pager. That is absolutely fine.
And one question: do you use BPMN? If yes, for what tasks? Of course, we use
Yes.
actually different visualization techniques depending on the need we are covering, and of course, for process modeling, BPMN is one of the best ones.
We are not using only just service blueprints, because
Yeah.
service blueprint is more about user journey and all those slices of user journey. But
Actually,
BPMNs for all this process automation flows, we are heavy on BPMNs. But there is the reference to the previous question, whether we use all the notation and all the tiny pieces with the timers and other stuff. Not usually, because guys, like, we don't have so much time to explain each notation, because well, I don't even know all the notations, but still, for different stakeholders, that first of all, they do not know what is BPMN, but then to know all these tiny pieces, we usually try to simplify it. But when we do it for ourselves, like go deeply into the automation flows, because usually we can automate some flow that took 1 hour, and right now with all the integration take 30 seconds. Of course, we go deeply into the BPMNs, because that is the best technique with the activity diagram. You may choose one of them to model all the tiny pieces and all those end-to-end flows, of course. Good. Seems like
yeah, we covered all the questions.
Yeah, and thanks a lot for all those kind words, because I can see all of them in the chat. That is really great to hear, because that is the thing we do, and we thought that, and thanks Kirill and the team for the opportunity, because we thought that would be great to share it with all of you, because this one pager has helped us a lot with different complicated projects where we just involved into the project and structured all the information, because that is the value that business analyst can really deliver when you just take information from the mind of your stakeholder, structure it, and put it into the mind of the developer. And the developer then just change it 3 times and put it into the tester, then tester call you. Sorry, I was just getting to the real life experience. I'm kidding, of course, or not.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. That was really wonderful webinar. And I think you can see all the comments where people are like praising you and giving you a lot of like thanks. So one more thank you from my side. We will definitely get you here one more time for more inappropriate jokes and probably a service blueprint references, but no animation.
We'll definitely make it orange. So be ready for this.
All right. All right. Thank you all for watching and for all your active participation and questions. And of course, big thanks to our speakers, Markiyan and Oksana. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Wish you all structured artifacts and good evening. Bye.